The gay man's odd relationship with Father's Day. Hum-de-dum. Last night was a dud. First, I thought I had like two Tinder dates, but they both flaked on me because they said that I seemed flaky. But like, whatever. The one guy is somebody who said he was like 5'8", but I think he's lying because I've seen him around and he's more like 5'6". And the other guy only had two pictures of himself anyway, one being a headshot, so you never really know with him. I decided to go to a bar, but it was just some sort of girl night thing that they said was a mixed night, except everybody was lesbians, and I guess people say that they maybe had some trans people, and some of them said that they were trans, but it didn't really seem like all that many of them were really trans, so I just drank in the corner and looked at Grindr on my phone, but nobody was writing back. Probably because they didn't want to hang out with somebody who was at the girl night, which I guess I can understand now that I think about it. I probably shouldn't have gone there, but too late. Anyhow, I was pretty hungover and I woke up to looking at Facebook and I realized that it's Father's Day today. Ugh, I hate Father's Day. But like, doesn't every gay guy? I mean, let's be honest. Even Mother's Day usually gives us a feeling of guilt when we realize that we don't call our mom enough. But Father's Day? Really? Is there actually a gay guy alive that somehow looks forward to Father's Day in any way? Oh wait, that might sound kind of racist because I know a few Latino guys that always make a big deal out of Father's Day on Facebook. Forget that I said that. Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and I just realized that it's Father's Day weekend, which is always a strange one in the LGBT community, the gay community, and I assume the Q-tip community, due to the fact that a huge percentage of non-straight people hate their fathers, and at least a probable majority of them at least have issues with them. With gay men especially, it's hard to really know the cause and effect here. From my experiences with knowing thousands of gay men, I have almost never met any gay guys who were sexually abused by their fathers, just for the record, which certainly isn't the case for lesbians and trans people, just saying. Still, many gay men hate their fathers for countless reasons, but again, it's hard to know where the hate comes from, and how honest they are being with you when they try to describe their hatred. Now, from my anecdotal observation, the probable majority of gay men who hate their fathers mostly simply didn't really have much of a father figure at all. This goes right into the narrative that so many conservatives repeat about how boys need male role models or they will end up homosexual or whatever. But of course, that can't really be all that true, because if that were the case, wouldn't there be many more flamingly gay black gay men out there? Not saying that there aren't several, but wouldn't it be almost hard to find black straight men if that were the case? Still, it's just what I have noticed from my observation. Many gay men rarely spent times around their fathers. Another thing I've noticed is that a lot of gay guys who did have fathers around had poor relationships with their fathers, and many were abused. Sometimes, maybe even often physically, but often more so just emotionally, and with looming disapproval. But that's where I start to wonder about the cause and effect. I have to ask myself, was the son disapproved of by his father because his father was ashamed to have a gay son, or did the son end up being gay because he didn't get along well with his father and thus didn't identify with him, which drove him toward identifying sexually with an instinct towards attraction to males? Truthfully, I don't have a stance in answering this question. I have not picked which one I truly believe, and I have heard compelling arguments from both sides about the born this way debate. On the one hand, I've heard from trusted sources that there does seem to be a lot of scientific evidence to show that there is a genetic component to homosexuality that makes certain people more likely to be homosexual. On the other hand, Freud always said that all people are born naturally bisexual, and they usually choose to identify as being sexually attracted to either one sex or the other, depending upon environmental factors, which I wouldn't exclude as a possibility. Either way, this usually, with gay men, has the pragmatic effect of many of these guys hating their fathers. Because if the son is born gay, many fathers are uncomfortable having a gay son, so they have a bad relationship with each other. And if the kid is socialized in early development to be gay somehow, it's usually because he already had bad feelings towards his father, right? But here's the thing, gay guys. Ultimately, we're all gonna be a lot happier if we learn not to hate our fathers. I mean, maybe not all of us, but the drastic majority of us. Honestly, unless you were severely physically abused, or your father was a murderer or a rapist of other people, you can probably find a way to forgive him for his sins. You see, life is too short for sitting around resenting the very people that brought you into this world. It's just not going to make you happy. These people are your own flesh and blood, and who ultimately probably have more in common with you than anybody else on Earth, in terms of the way that they actually act and behave. Maybe you don't know it because you've spent your entire life angry, resentful, and distant from your father, but I bet if you got to know him, you'd find that you have a lot more in common with him than you ever thought, maybe more than with anybody else in the entire world, because genetics are a pretty powerful thing. I bet that you'd find, if you did all of this stuff, not only that you have a lot more in common with him than you realize, but also that he has his own side to the story to literally every conflict you ever had with him. He also has his own side of the story to every conflict he ever had with your mother, to your siblings, and every bad thing you've ever heard about him. Often, things you've simply never given him a chance to even attempt to explain, he'll have a good explanation for. One thing that I've learned about people over the years is that many people, and perhaps maybe even especially women, have a tendency to very often actively discourage people from getting both sides of the story, especially when they want somebody to be mad at somebody else. When they are mad at somebody and they want people to be mad at them, they don't just want them to be mad at them, but more so, many people want you to be mad at them also, and to just go ahead and take their word for it that you should be mad, and they don't want the other person to be allowed to explain themselves. It happens kind of a lot. Maybe even in particular with women, but I don't know. Men definitely do that too. That being said, I've noticed in my life that many gay men have simply fallen for that mentality when it comes to their fathers. They remember their fathers often as being rather cruel to them when they were young, or at least being what they thought was cruel, but maybe the guy was really just being stern or firm with them when they were maybe used to being treated a bit more like a girl when they were younger, when they were with their mothers, because their parents were divorced and their mothers kind of treated them like a girl, but their father started treating them like a male, and they weren't really used to it, and they thought that it was cruel behavior, but that's just kind of not how things are, because guys have to be treated firmly because that's how they're going to be treated in life when they grow up and go through puberty, and their father was trying to prepare them for that, but their mother was treating them like a girl because they're just a little kid, and sometimes that's not the best way to raise a little boy, and mothers forget that, but, you know, when there's not a father around, I guess that kind of thing happens. Regardless, from there, they developed a negative impression of their fathers based on the stern behavior that they noticed him exhibiting, which became solidified intellectually by way of constant and relentless negativity, usually coming from their mother, who was usually the father's ex-wife, who didn't necessarily have to convince the young boy that his father was evil, but she certainly didn't really do anything to make him think highly of his father. Sure, many fathers fire back and say bad things about the boy's mother in turn, which often makes the little boy hate the father, and that's where gay men develop major issues with their family. But at the end of the day, they are the only family you have, and I promise you, younger gay guys, one thing that you should really listen to. When you get to be in your mid-30s and your supposed queer family or whatever starts actually occasionally dying as individuals to be cremated or buried underground, and almost nobody even bothers to really take care of them when they develop things like early onset lung cancer on account of the fact that their friends are all too busy partying to actually spend time with them, listen to their needs, and make sure that they are well fed. Well, when things like that start to happen, and you see how quote-unquote queer families neglect their quote-unquote family members when it comes to the nitty-gritty, you'll start to think about things a bit differently. Ultimately, you only ever have one real family for the most part. It's really, really rare when somebody who's not a blood relative becomes legitimately like family. And when you are a gay guy, you're almost never going to have children of your own. So I advise you to learn how to have a good relationship and maybe even love your father before he dies, or it will eat at your soul forever. And then, of course, after you're done with that, you can start working on your issues with your mother a bit better. And oh boy, you probably have lots of them, but you probably have no idea what those even are because you were so busy hating your dad the whole time. Funny how those things go. Happy Father's Day, Dad.